What's going on, JP? What's going on, chat? How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, hold on. My cheap ass timer that I set up at the last second is going off and it's beeping. There we go. All right. So guys, welcome to 1 vs. 1. This is a show. It was inspired mostly. Oh my God, and my sub sounds are still going off. It's inspired mostly by the fact that I've gotten to know
Viking of Ellohime.
God damn it, that's gonna be so annoying the whole way through. I've gotten to know a lot of guys on Twitch, and I've gotten to know a lot of different people in the industry, and I've realized that I don't know very much about them. I actually consider some of these people very good friends of mine. In fact, JP I consider to be a really good friend of mine, but I don't know much about him. So I thought we would make a show where we would talk a little bit about the guest in question, and we would have some good time talking about maybe his past a little bit, how he grew up, where he went to school, that kind of bullshit. And then in the second hour, we would work into how he got involved with Twitch or in the industry in general, and we would pretty much go from there. So I decided my first guest should be ItmeJP, none other than simply for the reason that JP actually hosts a lot of different shows. And he does a really, really, really incredible job. But it inspired me to have this show today. So that's why I wanted you on as my first guest. So welcome, JP. How you doing today?
Glad to be here. I guess just first and foremost, I apologize. My voice is a little off. I'll probably be meaning my mic to cough as much as possible. So if any of that leaks through, I apologize. So.
It's okay. My sub sound's going off. Like I totally turned it off, but it's still like going through. So give me just 1 minute, guys. And this is a little bit of teething issues here. So, but
first shows are always my favorite. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
For anything I've ever done, I love first shows because you actually figure out like what you want to do with the show from there. Like you have a great idea for the first show, and then you do the first show, and then you learn about 3,000 things that you want to change, and it's always the best. That's why I love doing them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not necessarily enjoying this part right now, but afterwards, I know it will create a better show. So I'm pretty okay with it. We're almost got it, guys, and then we'll be able to continue. But let me just start out. Let me start out before I do anything else and say, I've got to know JP over the last couple of years, just hanging out. I think the first time we met might have been San Diego for H1Z1. Am I wrong about that?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think we flew in. We either were on this. I think we were on the same flight. Yeah, because remember we were at the airport, and you had actually had a connection to DFW, and we met there in the airport at DFW where I was flying out.
That's right. And I felt so awkward because I was like, hey, JP,
I remember
like JP, what's going on, man?
I was in my normal, I'm traveling type mood, so I had my headphones in and my sunglasses on at 7 a.m. It was pretty early. It was like 8 a.m. or something like that. And I remember that's when you approached, and you definitely had to like, should I continue this type of conversation?
It happened to me with the same with duck sauce. It happened to me with duck sauce too. Like we ran into each other. It's always weird when you run into each other at the airport. Especially when you're going to like the same events or like, I don't know, it's that awkward phase. But
sure.
Yeah, as I've gotten to know you over the last year and a half, 2 years, I guess over 2 years now. I've noticed some things about you that I think are really quite admirable. And one of those things is you are really, really, you're a really fierce friend. You're very loyal. And you're very good to the people that you surround yourself with. And I want to know why. I want to know why that is. Is there anything from your childhood or like your teen years or like something that causes you to be that kind of person? Let's just start at the beginning. You know what? Let's just start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What'd you do? What was your childhood like?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. I was born in Odessa, Texas, which is West Texas, like basically the oil world. And that's kind of where on my dad's side of the family, they actually grew up in the oil world. My great-grandfather, who I'm actually named after, is responsible for. He was an engineer in the oil world, and a lot of the things that he created is still used kind of in the oil industry today on the oil wells in West Texas. So that's kind of where
you made all your money, your millions. That's why you got so rich.
I guess sure, yeah, sure. But yeah, I was born there in Odessa. Then I think I moved to San Antonio, or my family moved. I didn't have any say in the matter because I was quite young. I think I was about 3 when I moved to San Antonio, and that's where I grew up. And I didn't leave till I think I was 22 or 23 when I moved to Galveston. But yeah, I pretty much grew up, lived in San Antonio, Texas, my entire life.
So we spoke just briefly right before we actually went live. Same thing with me, man. I've got all my family around Tampa and stuff like that. But you did end up moving away, you know, when you said when you were 23. But you just said that you're going back, actually. So,
yeah, I'm going back to San Antonio. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. And the reason for that is I one of my friends that I grew up with, I guess in the high school days when I became like a full-fledged nerd and go to LAN parties and everything in San Antonio, actually moved up here to Dallas and had a spot. He owns this house, so he basically said, yeah, you come stay with me for however long you need, because when I left Galveston, I actually ended up leaving MLG, which was my full-time job. So I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do, and so it was cheap, it worked out, and it wasn't San Antonio at the time because I just wanted to, I wanted to be away from all of that and see what life was like apart from the family. So
yeah, and you know, for those of us who have been raised around like a lot of our family for a very long time, that's tough, man, to move away from family. Like,
it was tough at first. I think my family's always been the type of family that, at family meetings and stuff, I would be in the back room playing games, and then my mom would have to come yell at me to say, like, dinner's ready, come eat with your entire family, and they'd be like, oh, he came out of his cave.
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
Oh my God. No wonder we're such good friends.
joke.
No wonder we're such good friends. It's like the same exact thing with me. I used to get that a lot. I remember specifically I had a birthday party one time where all my family came over. My mom threw it. I was pretty young. I don't know how old I was, but I was playing Warcraft's Orcs and Humans. I got it for my birthday. And that's all I did the whole time. They were like, come blow out the candles on the cake. I like rushed over there and like blew them out and then ran back, and everyone's like, that's just Adam. So no, I totally get that. So tell us a story about your childhood, man. You got any good stories from your childhood? Anything passed down from your family? Something stupid you may have done, funny? If you got nothing to put you on the spot, it's fine. But
I mean, I think a lot of people know this because I've talked about it before, but I was kind of an accident-prone child. I did a lot of really dumb things and hurt myself in a lot of really weird ways as a kid, but I never broke a bone. I've still never broken a bone.
Oh my God, JP, you are like, I'm having an interview with myself right now. I've never broken a bone, but like my mom had to call poison control on me like 6 times, something. I did some really like, I ran into a parked car, which is actually, this scar right here, a little triangle, that's from running into the tailpipe of a parked car on one of those little plastic tricycles. And I was like, I think it was like 6 or 7 or something like that. I got bit by a dog and had like a third of my calf muscle removed by the dog on my right hand side. Jesus Christ.
I got a treble hooked, like one of those little 3-prong hooks on the end of a fishing lure stuck in my kneecap when I was fishing in our lake house. We had to drive like an hour to get that removed.
Did you get stitches for any of this stuff?
I have stitches for the dog bite.
Oh yeah, I would imagine for the dog bite when you lose your
nothing
calf.
for the eye, nothing for the knee. I had my 2 front teeth knocked out. Those like big toy play chests? You ever have seen those as a kid?
You'll have to be more specific.
It was like a plastic big ass toy chest that it wasn't like an actual wooden one, but it would work just to store a bunch of bullshit in for kids.
Yeah.
My friend was holding it out in front of him like this, and for whatever reason, I took karate as a kid. I ended up getting second-degree black belt, and I kicked the edge of that, and it flipped the thing and knocked my 2 front teeth out, which was a lot of fun. They were baby teeth though, so I still have real front teeth. And then I think like a year or 2 after that, in actual karate class it might have been for the high red belt or whatever. You have to spar 2 people at once. And in this particular sparring session, I was wearing a mouth guard. It didn't matter though. I guess I got tired or something because it was.
They beat the shit out of you, JP. That's what happened.
I ended up winning, but I took a front kick right, and we wear like protective headgear.
Yeah.
Headgear. But I ended up taking a front kick right here to the chin, and it knocked my 2 bottom teeth up, or actually, sorry, my 2 top front teeth down, and like chopped off the front of my tongue.
Really?
Where it was like hanging out. But no one knew that until the end of the fight, because like then I opened my mouth and blood just fucking went everywhere, which I thought was pretty badass. That I like finished the fight with like
You went to smile with like your belt. You're like, and then the blood just is coming out of your face, and they're like,
I had tears in my eyes because obviously it hurt, but everyone thought I was just being emotional because of the fight or some shit. And like I ended up winning, or the fight was over. I don't even know if they had wins back then. I was around 10 or something like that. And yeah, I opened my mouth and blood just went everywhere. So I've done a lot of dumb stuff in terms of just being accident prone as a kid. There's probably others that I'm forgetting, but I always remember the ones that I just listed.
It's so funny. Like I have little stuff like that too. Like if you look, oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this episode 1. I'm going to have a huge booger at my nose, but just bear with me. If you look at my nose, you'll see that it actually like, I don't know if you can see.
Left nostril's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. You can't see when you're looking straight at me, but like, yeah, I broke my nose. I've been in, I'm right there with, I was more like the guy who like, or the kid that like climbed the chimney and ate the charcoal. And so mom's like on poison control. I was more mayhem than maybe accidents. Maybe I was more chaos, you know, like I would take the vacuum cleaner and like suck up all the water and like I would like turn on the water in the sink and then vacuum it all up.
Did you ever burn your fingers on the car cigarette lighter? Did you ever do that?
No, but I burned my fingers on a barrel one time helping my dad do some yard work. We were burning some stuff in the backyard. And I burnt the tips of my fingers there.
I don't know why they put cigarettes. I mean, I guess I do because everyone smoked back then, but like those things, I've known more and more kids that push that thing in the car and then you pull it out and it was like this fucking molten lava red thing to light a cigarette. And the first thing that I know kids do, because I did it, I just pushed my thumb in there to see what it was.
Yeah, man, I dodged that bullet. Thank God. Yeah. But no, I can see exactly why, you know, as a kid, like having a daughter now too, as curious as she is about everything.
Yeah. That's gotta be a little bit crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it is. It's absolutely crazy. It's so funny. The more that I'm talking to you, I realize that we have actually really similar backgrounds. How long did you do karate? Because you had to have been in it for a while. You said black belt, so.
Yeah, I want to say 5 to 6 years. I still have all my belts somewhere and all my gi and all that crap. And I had like protective headgear and like shin pads and gloves and stuff like that. I went to one like actual tournament where it was like taekwondo 1v1 type stuff, and I learned that I didn't have the fighting spirit in me. Because the first fight I was ever in that type of setting, I got against the kid. He was a little bit younger than me, and I was also a very tall person growing up. I was 6 foot by the time I was 12 or maybe even 11 years old. I was very tall as a kid.
I can believe that.
So I always fought like out of my age, but the way that the Taekwondo tournament worked is that you fought your age. So this other kid was like, I don't know, 5'6", 5'5", still a pretty tall kid, but he was much smaller than I was. But the way the fight went, he just kicked nonstop. He never stopped kicking. And I like didn't know what to do because I didn't want to just like walk forward and take a hit just to get in a punch or anything like that. So I just basically got kicked for like 3 minutes straight.
That reminds me of The Simpsons when like Lisa's like, I'm not going to stop kicking, and Bart's like, I'm not going to stop punching, and they just walk towards each other. You know,
it was a really weird. I still remember that to this day, and I knew from that point on that I would never be a fighter because I was like, this is like I don't want to sit there and take a hit just so I can get in this fight. And I remember everyone saying like, oh, you got to block, blah blah blah. I was like, I'm not going to go in there and take a hit just to progress forward. I'd rather just take all these on the side and just stand there and let this fight be over with because this is bullshit.
Well, it's more of a chess match at that point, right? Because when you're point fighting, you know, like, which I assume you were because it's karate, it's more of a chess match than it is like, you know, like just a street brawl, you know? So you're trying to think about points and you're trying to think about being effective and your enemy and all that shit. So, no, I can totally get that. I did wrestling, so I avoided all the punches, but yeah, I did a very similar thing. I went to, man, mine's like the opposite. I went to one tournament for wrestling, and when I went, I've always weighed a lot. And not to say that I've always been fat. I'm overweight now, but like even young when I wasn't overweight, like I've always just been a heavy guy. I just have. Like my dad picked me up as a kid. He told me, he's like, you were just heavy. Like you're just a heavy guy. Like I'm at 220, I'm comfortable. Like that's me, like skinny. But anyways, weight is everything when it comes to wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
So I was put in this weight class that was like so out of my league, and I was like, I don't know, maybe like 14 or something like that, and I go in and I see this guy I'm about to face, and I'm talking, this kid's just like, he's the 6-footer, I'm like the 5'5", man. This
Right.
kid's just built. I'm totally intimidated right out the gate. It was fucking horrible. And
I'm sure he had more experience too, because he was older.
oh,
right?
dude, this kid. Well, I don't know how old he was. All I know is that I was pinned in like maybe 15 seconds. I got in there. I grappled with him. I don't know what happened. I lost, and like that totally killed my confidence for
Yeah.
fighting beyond that. But I did like it for, you know, there was some discipline stuff. Do you find that like the karate, because they really push like discipline and
Yeah.
bettering yourself and calm, you know, being calm and patience and all that other stuff. Did that shape you in any way?
I think so. I mean, I think the original idea behind going into karate was because I had so much energy as a kid. My parents were just like, you have to put this to use in something. Because I was always really against just doing anything organized. I never played in organized sports. And I was always, I've been, like I was saying, I was 6 foot and I've always been around. I think I was like 180, 200 in high school. So like I was a big kid. And so the first thing that happened when I walked into high school was like, do you play football?
Yeah.
No. Do you play basketball? I was like, no. So I've always been really against organized sports or any sort of like being in a league. And with karate, like you were just kind of yourself. You didn't represent anyone else. You just played you just fought or memorized a form, or because each belt had a form, we had to do that. And so it was more intellectual based than just like raw physical ability.
Mm.
And I guess I enjoyed that or something, and I was able to progress forward in that. And towards the end of that, a lot of the reason why I stuck around is because saying you're second degree black belt in something is kind of cool. And so I knew that as a kid, like, yeah, I guess I could say that. I didn't know that 5 years down the line it'd be kind of dumb, because then the second question is like, oh, well, when did that happen? It's like, well, I was like 12 or some 14. I don't know. I remember they're like, oh, so you don't remember anything.
So you don't use this anymore. You're not like on your resume.
You're not actually a cool fighter or anything.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go into esports. Well, what are your qualifications? Well, I got a
Exactly.
black belt in second.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So what did you do in high school then? If you weren't involved in any sports, I agree with you, by the way. I'm the same again. Very similar when it comes to that. I like the one-on-one aspect of things. And that's why I actually got into cross country when I was in high school, because it was a team thing, but it was your individual, you know, time. It was more of it was me versus this 3-mile track, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So, but what else did you do?
In high school, I'm trying to think if I was a part of any club. I know in not middle school, whatever, 5th and 6th grade, I was in the chess club, and that was really fun. I actually went to a bunch of tournaments for the chess club there in San Antonio and won a couple of those events. But I haven't played chess in a long, long time. I still remember a lot of the, like, you know, the moves and stuff to play, or the openings, I guess I should say. But in high school, I think I was such a gamer by then. I didn't really care too much about school. I was always the kid that, for whatever reason, I could not study. I would go to classes, I would take good notes, but I wouldn't study at all. And I just go home and play video games till sometimes like 4 or 5 a.m. and then go to school at 6 a.m. I remember multiple times playing Quake 3 overnight, and then going to school without sleeping. And I would do that like midterm week or finals week. And sometimes I would kind of fuck up. Other times it was all right. I didn't matter. But to me, it was all about, yeah, I should just keep playing video games.
Yeah. What was the first, like some of the first video games that you got into? Like can you remember like the first video game you played?
Oh yeah. Well, I was never really a big gamer necessarily until, like, my brother played. I have an older brother by 5 or 6 years. And so he was always kind of the console gamer growing up. I remember even when I got bit by the dog, to reference back to that, I walked back to my house and I was in shock, so I wasn't crying, right? So I walked into the house and my brother was playing Super Mario Brothers 3 at the time. It might have been Super Mario World. Anyways, some Super Mario game that it just came out. And instead of like telling him I got bit by a dog, et cetera, I just sat down next to him and watched him play. So I was always fascinated by games. Eventually, I passed out, and that's when we ended up going to the hospital.
So you were a viewer before you were a streamer. You're the original viewer.
You always had that thing growing up with if you had an older brother or siblings, where you had to watch them play games, right? Because like
I was the older brother.
Yeah, you didn't own multiple consoles back then, and so someone had to watch unless it was like a multiplayer game. And back then on consoles, there weren't too many multiplayer games. I remember playing like Mario Brothers on the SNES. That was a lot of fun. Sorry, not Mario Brothers. Mario Kart on the SNES. Like I remember the fucking water level where you could jump in the water and get the power ups there and all that stuff. That was a ton of fun. I guess the earliest game I remember playing was the original Zelda on the SNES, and my dad would actually play, and I would tell him where to go, and that was kind of, I guess that was almost a bonding experience that me and my dad had. But I think I was like 4 or 5 when that came out. I was really young. I remember like the gold NES cartridge that came with it.
Oh yeah, I still have that.
Yeah. And so I think those are probably some of the earliest gaming memories I have. Is either watching my dad or playing along with my dad in that, or playing my brother in Mario Kart. Or did you ever play Mario Paint?
No, I didn't. I was never allowed to have a console at the house when I was growing up because my mom thought I would be addicted to video games. Go figure. So yeah. I had the computer. So I was more of a computer. We had an old school Macintosh, like where the tower and the monitor were all in one, and it was about this big. And I used to play old games like Dark Castle and stuff. So I grew up on like the PC until N64 came around, and my parents decided to drop some money on us. By the way, just a PSA: if anyone's watching this and they're bleeding out from their calf from a dog bite, please go to the hospital. Please do not just stay and watch this stream. Just I feel obligated after that story to let them know.
Yeah. So with Mario Paint, like it came with a mouse, and it came with a mouse pad, right?
Yeah. I remember that. I vaguely remember that.
And there's a game called SWAT. And it was one of my favorite games as a kid because the music was so fucking good, and all you did was just swat flies on the screen, right? But I also remember it being super, super hard, and it was really one of the first competitive games that I played, but it was only competitive in our own household because me and my brother would just take turns to see who could get further in this game. I can't remember how the music went. I'll have to listen to it after this, but that was I remember that being like a really, really huge game in our household.
So like Fruit Ninja before Fruit Ninja was Fruit Ninja? Yeah,
a little bit. It was a really fantastic and the entire Mario RPG or Mario Paint thing was just crazy. But I remember playing that. It was a lot of fun.
So what was Mario Paint? Like, did they create the game? You could create the game, or like what was it?
It was an interesting thing. Like Mario Paint, yeah, it was Mario Paint. It had a bunch of mini games in it. One of them was you could just paint, like literally like choose the color and like draw in pixel by pixel of these like different Mario scenes. There was one too that was a music composer, and you could actually write music in it, but the notes were like Mario sounds, if that makes sense. So
yes.
It would be like all we would do is we put like the pig in there and make like a fart noise or an oink noise, and we would just we would go and find songs from like Nintendo Power or wherever we got them from. I don't think the internet existed. Magazines, I think, were the best resource back then. And we would go and get those songs and then put them into Mario Paint and just listen to them play back, and that was always a lot of fun.
That seems like a game that was like way before its time. Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So any other games of note growing up? I mean, you probably got a ton. I mean, so that's where it kind of started out, right?
Yeah, I think my first adventure into PC gaming, my brother was in high school at the time, which means that I was in middle school, and he had a friend in high school that had a really, really good computer. His name was actually John McDaniel as well. They shared the last name, and I think it was John McDaniel, so I think that's why they were friends. But I remember my brother went over to his house and played StarCraft over there for the first time. And he came home and he told me about StarCraft, and I was like, that sounds like awesome. I want to play that like right now. And so we ended up getting a computer that Christmas, and that was the first game that I played back then. And I remember like getting onto BattleNet and like talking shit to people and like being in an internet chat room. And these are back in the days. This is back in the AOL days, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you'd have to like connect via the fucking 56K modem. And if someone picked up the phone, which happened multiple times during a game, you'd get disconnected. And like I would play like ladder matches. And so if you got disconnected in the ladder match, it didn't actually count as a loss. So you could cheese that. And so that's kind of like where I started out, I guess, in the PC world. It was StarCraft 1.
Yeah, my uncle actually burned me a CD for StarCraft. He was like, "You got to play this," and I was like, "Okay." So I jumped on, started playing, and that's kind of. I mean, I didn't go online with that. I did only the single player, but it wasn't long before I was on. What was it? Warcraft 2: Tides of Darkness, I believe, was the first time I went online. I believe I was like 12 at that point, and we were in our own little online league and everything, because I don't believe they even had, and they may have had rankings, but I can't even remember. All I know is that I joined a group of guys that there was like 20 or 30 of us, and they had created their own community. They had sanctioned matches.
Sure.
We had ranks, and I wasn't very good, but I definitely remember getting into all that. So that was your first step into sort of PC gaming. Where did it go from there? What was the next big one? You mentioned Quake 3.
Yeah, so around that time, I want to say I was either in late middle school or freshman year of high school. CS 1.6 was out, and I played a little bit of that. And then I ended up meeting. So at that time, my brother worked at GameWorks, which I don't know if they're still around today. I think they're somewhere in the nation.
GameWorks, but, I think it's what is it called now? They like changed a lot of them. Like we used to have one.
The Dave and Buster's equivalent.
Yeah. I think it actually was bought by them and then changed into Dave and Buster's. I could be wrong about that. But
I remember there was multiple. I remember Dave, maybe later on, but he worked at a GameWorks, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a like the Infinity card, which employees had, which had a limited game time on it. And I've told the story a lot. I would go to the arcade on Friday nights, and they had a DDR. They had a DDR1 machine. Eventually, it was DDR2. Then I think they got fourth mix on there. But I would basically play that for like 8 hours every Friday.
So that's why it hurts even worse that Future Man Gaming.
Yeah.
He got you because you're like, this is my bread and butter. I grew up with this shit. Like, let's dance, man. Let's dance. You were like ready.
We told me that they wanted to get the heart, like the actual arcade dance pads, but they couldn't get it shipped there in time. That was the main reason. So. But within playing that, I ended up meeting a bunch of friends, and one of those friends, who's actually passed on since then, was a person by the name of Pam. And Pam went to a bunch of LANs around San Antonio, and they all played Quake. So one Friday after we ended up playing, a bunch of us went over to Pam's house, and we ended up playing Quake 3 for the first time. And I still remember, like, the first time I've ever learned to rocket jump was that night. Like just looking down at the ground on RA3Q4, which is the castle map, if anyone's played that, and like learning to rocket jump on that. And from like that night, I was immediately hooked. I ended up learning how to build a computer like the next month or so, and like ordered all these parts and built it by myself, not knowing what the fuck was going on. And then I just played Quake for like days, and then eventually got into WoW. That's another story.
Yeah, I only what I remember of Quake was I thought it was funny that if you could get the enemies to shoot each other, that they would kill each other, like they would fight each other. Like that's all I remember from it, and I thought that was like a crazy thing at the time. I was like, oh, but let's go in a little bit of different direction. So, sure. What kind of like how did you do in school? Like were you did you always get good grades? Because you're a smart guy, So were you academically?
I think I went to a private Catholic university, and I don't remember what it was. I think I graduated like 7th or 8th in my class, and like a class of like 110 or something like that. But school was always the type of thing where I just didn't. I cared enough to like make sure that I was getting good grades so my parents didn't get pissed off, but I didn't care enough to like really apply myself to be like the best.
Yeah.
Because it took a lot of work, right? Like people are smart just inherently, and if you put in the work, it's like school's not that hard if you just study.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the issues in school is that kids just don't want to study. At least when I was going, and so like I was in high school, I took like Calculus 2 as a junior and all that crap, and I guess I did well in school. I ended up getting graduating college with what is it, cum laude or whatever with honors is in college as well. So I guess I did well in school, but it wasn't because I was like trying. I did it
You're
because
just
I didn't want my
naturally a
parents-
badass.
It's not even.
All right, everyone, we got a badass over here. He just
I
didn't
did it
even
because I
try.
didn't want my parents to be mad. Like that was the entire
Yeah.
reason I went to college. No one in my family had graduated college. In my entire extended family had
Really?
college. And so I
Wow.
was just like, fuck it, I'll just go. I don't know what I want to do yet in life, so let's just go to college just to make them happy, and I'll just keep playing games. So that's what I did.
So were you well liked in high school? Were you popular, or did you stick
I was
to yourself?
always the guy. I was always the person that was able to go into any clique, but I was never like best friends with that clique, right? So like I could go into any. I could go hang out with football players. I could go hang out with the nerds. I could go hang out with anyone, but like I didn't have like a because my best friends were online, right? Because I played video games.
God, JP, man, JP,
So,
I'm
like,
telling you, man, yeah.
My best friends were the people that I played Quake with or that I played World of Warcraft with, and people at school were just kind of like they were all right. I just didn't have any interest in them because they didn't understand gaming, and I was always kind of like the gamer at school, but no one ever like gave me shit because I was like 6'3" in high school, so they didn't bother me. Like I
Yeah.
was never bullied or anything like that.
Yeah. So what about women? You have any girlfriends in high school? When did that become an important thing?
I'm trying to think. In middle school, I remember the first time.
You don't have to lie. You don't have to lie. If it wasn't until like just a couple years ago, it's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to make up some story about middle school
This
where.
story does not. This will not benefit me or make me look cool.
Perfect. Continue.
In middle school, I think I was a 6th grader, and there was an 8th grader by the name of, I think her name was Stephanie. Anyways, I thought she was just like the bee's knees, right? I thought she was the most attractive person in the fucking
I
world.
love it.
And on Valentine's Day in school back then, I don't know if this is still the same. You would go and like get him a small gift, and then he would be like, give it to her, like, will you be my Valentine? Blah blah blah. And I ended up doing that to her. I gave her all the stuff, and then there was also like the Valentine's dance the same week, right? And I asked like, do you want to go to the dance? And she was like, no, thank you. I'm going with someone else. And ever since then, I was just crushed. So I just said, screw girls. I'm just not going to bother until probably college.
It's a smart choice.
Yeah. Because the other thing, too, is that in high school, I knew all of the dating rumors or all the bullshit dating things that were going on. So, like, I was more interested in knowing all of the drama and bullshit rather than being a part of the drama myself. And so I just, like, watched everyone else do these stupid fucking things and like have these relationships, and I was like, this is pointless. Like, why the fuck do you guys get out of this? I just fucking go look at porn and play video games, and I don't have to deal with any of that. So that's what I did, and I think a lot of that stems from what happened in middle school that ruined me so wrong.
Yeah, it really did like put it, because I have my times where somebody just said that one thing, and then it's just like, well, I'm just done with that. Like, it's just not. It's almost like the thing with like wrestling, like getting beat so bad at that one tournament, I just stopped doing wrestling. I was just like, I'm done, Sure. So it wasn't until college, like freshman year.
I'm trying to think.
I want to know, JP. I want to know I want all the sexy
my
details.
first like official girlfriend was, I think it was sophomore year of college. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in communication arts. That's what my degree's in. So it was in comm art school. And I think it was in like journalism 1 or 2 or whatever course it was. And it was just a girl that was in there. And we ended up getting grouped together through the fucking, like, I hate group assignments in school. I don't know why they still do those. And that's actually what happened. It was a group assignment. And it was one of those deals where we had to like stay after school, and we ended up just hitting it off. And I think we dated for like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 months, something like that. I was like, okay, I get this. It sucks that I can't play video games and I have to go spend time with her, but like, I understand that. Eventually it came to the point where like she was also interested in games, so that worked out. I don't know why we ended up breaking up though. I don't remember what happened.
If you can't remember, it probably wasn't that important. So
yeah, it might have just been the fact that I played too many games. Like,
because of that, like when you're younger and you're in a new relationship, there's always that like honeymoon phase where you gotta spend like every set, like you feel like you have to spend a lot of time. You're not mature enough to be like doing the same thing or doing your own thing in the same room, like together, that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, no, I totally get that. Why'd you go in for communications? Like what was appealing about that?
So a lot of that for college is the reason that I actually started out in college for the first semester was just a business degree, just a general business degree. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, One Up Yours, GFW Radio, the Brodeo podcast, which is GFW Radio, just another name. And I was really interested in like being a journal, like a game journalist, like reviewing games and stuff like that. And I started working for a site called Gotfrag at the time, which is actually where I met Sir Scoots and people like Slasher. And this was back in like 2006, 7.
Oh, so you've known Sir Scoots a very long time then.
Yeah, I've known him and Slasher and a bunch of people from the esports world for a very, very long time. In fact, Scott was my first quote unquote boss back when he did Gotfrag TV in like 2008 or 9. And so I was always going to esports events. And so the only way I could convince my parents to let me do communication arts degree was the fact that I could be a video game journalist and like review games and stuff like that. I don't know if it exists anymore, but the first ever article I had published for a video game review was for Kingdom Hearts 2 on a website called dpad on gotfrag.com, which was a side portal for Gotfrag, which was like the main esports site back then.
So what? Wait, so what was Gotfrag? What exactly?
Gotfrag was like one of the main score reporting sites and like esports websites back when print media was still a thing. Back when like long form articles were a thing on the internet, and like YouTube or Twitch didn't exist as big as they are today. They still existed, but not for that reason.
So you sort of have roots that go before all, before you like you just said, YouTube, Twitch, that more. So you've kind of grown up into this stuff then.
Oh yeah. I've definitely seen it. I mean, I was there when Twitch was created and that whole thing happened, and I guess I've seen kind of the multi facets of the gaming world and the esports world for almost 10 years now, if not more. So yeah, I've been around, I guess.
Man, well, let's go ahead and take a quick break because I want to talk more about Twitch, and we'll get into that. It's a pretty decent segue. So We'll take a little bit of a break. If you gotta go potty or anything. But anyways, guys, we'll be right back in we'll do about 5 minutes, and hope you guys stick around. Then we'll talk a little bit about Twitch, what JP did to kind of get involved with Twitch, YouTube, esports, all that stuff. So stick around. We'll be right back.